This young couple will soon become a family. The bride's name is Ekaterina. She's 25 and works in a Moscow bank. Her fiancé's name is Sergei. He's also 25. They are making plans for a happy family life and are busy getting ready for their wedding. Sergei has been HIV positive for 8 years. In order to survive, he has to take antiviral pills each day. Many people say that after being diagnosed with HIV, they experience something similar to being born again. Whenever a partner is HIV positive, it's always a risk. But paradoxically, people around the world testify that this risk, which they are aware of, brings them closer, makes them more considerate and more forgiving towards each other.
Once you realize your situation, you see everything in a different light. You understand that all of the petty arguments and conflict don't really mean a thing. I understood that we may have to endure some difficulties, some limitations, but love really works wonders.
Sergei doesn't hide his diagnosis, while Ekaterina doesn't hide her decision to have children. Ekaterina's parents told her, "This is your life. It's up to you to decide." Ekaterina's mother likes Sergei a lot. To her, like her daughter, his personality is more important than his diagnosis.
In fact, I'm not a sick person. Suppose Ekaterina was HIV positive, not me. I think love would still remove every reservation I have.
This is footage of doctors in Kazan, a city on the Volga River, 800 kilometers east of Moscow.
Are you all right? Very good.
This is a cesarean section. The mother hears the first cries of her daughter as the doctors carry out their work. Both the father and mother have been diagnosed with HIV. It's still unclear whether their child will be healthy. According to statistics, when parents have HIV, 1 child out of 100 is born infected. Fortunately, this girl was born healthy. Her parents gave her a biblical name, Eva Maria. Eva Maria will soon be 1 year old. She inherited a happy disposition from her mother. The girl is totally healthy. She has an excellent appetite and is unaware of the anxieties that preceded her birth.
Ilya said, still, there is a 1% risk involved. I mean, the chance that the child will have the same diagnosis. I said, no. I didn't want to think about it. I realized that you just have to believe that your child will be healthy.
Svetlana reminds her husband to take his daily dose of antiviral pills.
Ilya, it's time to take your pills.
In a family where both parents are HIV positive, taking pills is as normal as brushing your teeth. Svetlana Izambayeva was one of the first people in Russia to openly admit she'd been diagnosed with HIV. In 2005, she won the National Miss Positive contest, which is held for HIV-positive women. Pictures of more than 30 women competing for the title were published on a website dedicated to AIDS-related issues in Russia. The jury chose Svetlana. After she became Miss Positive, Svetlana revealed her status to the whole of Russia by giving interviews and appearing on TV. Her triumph came to an end when she returned home.
When I came back home, my phone started ringing. People would say, Sveta, you have AIDS. Sveta, AIDS. People would recognize me on the bus. They looked at me with disapproval. And this was very unpleasant for me. But the most terrible thing was that my sister and my brother were told by their employers to get an HIV test done. A friend of mine lost her job as an accountant. They told her, you should be more careful about who you make friends with.
She didn't give up and didn't despair, because people with the same problem from all over the country began to contact her, by phone, through the internet, through friends and acquaintances. Ilya first saw a picture of his future wife on the Miss Positive website, and they've been together ever since. He followed Svetlana's example and stopped hiding his HIV status. They met at a group therapy session for HIV-positive people.
People who hide their HIV status are like criminals on the run. Psychologically, they are afraid of everything. We tell people that they will feel much better after they reveal their HIV status, at least to their friends and relatives.
Early in the morning, Sergei makes his way to work through the traffic jams. He's in charge of a rehabilitation center for drug addicts in Kraskova, a village 10 kilometers from Moscow. Some of the patients have HIV like Sergei. The day starts with a visit to an Orthodox temple. Some of them made the decision to get off drugs on their own, while some were taken into rehab by their relatives. They always get ready for a visit to church. After confession, they approach the priest to take communion. The main psychological challenge to them is to recover their interest in life, to rediscover themselves. An HIV diagnosis shouldn't be an obstacle. The local priest, Father Dmitry, is well aware of the problems his young parishioners have.
All people are absolutely equal for our Lord. Although someone who falls ill with HIV separates himself or herself in his or her inner psyche from other people. But they still need people and try to overcome this. And the fact that they are among us, they get in touch with us and try to be with us, is evidence of their courage.
After the church service, Father Dmitry returns to the rehabilitation center, a small village house in the country where they all live as a community. They keep house, undergo counseling, and enjoy their spare time there. They help each other with everything. Their everyday life is strictly regulated. The food is plain but nourishing.
The favorite food for members of the rehabilitation center is buckwheat mash, but there is also a delicacy, potatoes. They're expensive, hence they're rare. The patients are happy every time they see potatoes. We can see how glad they are to see them, even in the process of peeling.
The food is ready, guys.
Several people here know about their HIV diagnosis and have the courage to tell other people. If someone wants to hide it, they have the full right to do so. There are also those here who don't know precisely whether they have the virus or not. In any case, an HIV diagnosis isn't met with hostility.
I know for sure that many who have this diagnosis are pushed into leading a healthy way of life. In other words, it is a stimulus for a change. And however controversial it may sound, sometimes HIV helps people not to die.
The rules at the rehabilitation center aren't only about a system of strict prohibition of harmful or lethal habits. They're also about a code of particular ethics, in which the most important component is a love of life.
We are all different, but united by one goal, to learn how to live. Each of us has their own particular past. It could be criminal. It could be somewhat shameful or something like that, something not easy to talk about openly. However, here, we learn to respect each other and be as we are, without regard for rank, occupation, advantages or disadvantages. Roughly speaking, everything starts from scratch here.
Nadezhda Zavadskaya has been here for more than 6 months. She's had HIV for 6 years. Her old life is behind her, a prison term and drug abuse. Here, at the rehabilitation center, she helps new people and spends nearly all of her free time to this end. She also writes poetry and keeps a diary.
I believe this disease has been invented. Just invented with an aim to make people stop believing in life. And I understand that I indeed rather believe in death than life. However, I am a living human being. I live and I want to live. I want a family and I want children. And I know that my current status is just a status. And if someone in this rehabilitation center is infected, it means they are ready to face the fact that it is not the end of the world. It is the beginning of light, the light in your life.
After lunch, residents have several hours free. Yevgeny Sabina devotes them to reading the Gospel. He is due to be tested for HIV. He's in rehab for drug addiction, and it was going quite well, but recently he began to feel ill. It's time to find out what the cause is.
So, here we are. Let's go.
While on the way to the Moscow AIDS Center where he'll be tested, Yevgeny doesn't feel like talking. He may have been infected in the same way as many other drug addicts.
We had one needle for everyone and shot up one by one. Just washed it every time and used it again. It was only several days later that I found out that one of us had this virus, although he hadn't said anything before.
Every day, dozens of people go to the Moscow Federal AIDS Center to be tested for HIV. Several cubic milliliters of blood will soon be taken to the laboratory. All Yevgeny has to do is wait for the results, which will be known in several days' time. The doctor has promised to call him personally. This is the color of an initial HIV virus sample. Each of the 96 sockets in the glass plate are from one patient. If the contents turn amber, it means the patient is HIV positive. The next, more sophisticated stage of the test goes through a machine. The result is on a special piece of paper. If dark strips emerge, it means that the HIV diagnosis is established and can't be contested. This clinic is in St. Petersburg, a city on the Baltic Sea, 800 kilometers from Moscow. It has a section for AIDS patients. Every day, a tall man in a white coat can be seen in the corridors and on the wards, but he isn't a doctor. Nikolai Panchenko was one of the first people in the Soviet Union to be officially diagnosed with HIV. People with serious diseases wait for him every day. He describes to them how he has been able to live with his condition for more than 20 years.
How long have you been infected?
I think maybe 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years? Well, that's not too long.
20 years ago, an HIV diagnosis was tantamount to a prison sentence. The authorities decided to isolate him in order to stop the virus from spreading. Nikolai was put in solitary confinement in a prison and spent 4 years there.
When I was in prison, I used to read a lot of books. I exercised naturally because it was such a small cell. And I had to move around to exercise so that my muscles didn't degenerate into nothing. This is how I survived. They told me, "You will die in this cell." But I answered them, "I will outlive you."
Many of the patients here have no home and no family. Nikolai helps them find food and clothes He helps those who leave the clinic to find a job and helps them to find somewhere to stay. For those who are terminally ill, he helps them